Hey guys, welcome back to All Packed Up. Great episode today with our good friend Basheer. He's ambassador for HOC Hunters of Color, and just a good dude. Kansas, what was your takeaway from the interview?
Man, one of the things that we know living in Texas is there's just a lack of public land, so it's really hard to get out. And it's
Sure.
incredible to see people like Bashir, who has private land that is not only providing access to his land so people can get out, but also mentoring and educating people on how to get outside and how to learn these skills and have these experiences to decide for themselves, is this something they want to continue to pursue with somebody that's knowledgeable and can keep them safe and show them all the ropes.
Yeah.
Incredible guy, travels all over the place, super passionate about people and the outdoors and breaking down barriers. Great episode.
Yeah. Super fun. Awesome dude. It's a very thoughtful guy, I thought, and just an advocate for the phrase the outdoors is for everyone.
Yep.
What's new with PAKMULE? A few new things. We've got some new stuff coming out in the next couple of weeks as far as products.
Yeah, we're working
potentially.
on a few things. Some folks are trying to figure out how to hang a scout on a wall.
Yeah. Wink, wink.
So maybe maybe that's enough of a hint there.
Yeah.
And then, the Educate and Inspire series that we just launched has been incredible. Super excited. Our company, while we build really great gear, our passion is really getting people outside. And so whether that's providing an opportunity to load up and go, or to provide people the skills and the confidence to be able to get outside and pursue new skills and hobbies and interests. So not only providing good gear, but also the skills and resources to be able to chase these dreams. It's been a huge passion of mine to be able to provide that to the community. It's free of charge. Log in or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Not only do we already have a big drop of videos that are on there, but we're going to continue to drop more videos in those series and then additional videos throughout the summer as we continue to film them, all hosted by pros that are much more knowledgeable than we are. So you get the full breakdown and details on how to get outside and be rad.
Yeah. Good stuff. With that being said, Bashir. Bashir, welcome to the pod, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's nice to meet you. We thought we'd love to get you on and talk about you, what you believe in, how you get started in the outdoors,
Yeah.
where you're from, etc.
Yeah.
We're talking a little bit out before we started, but tell us a little bit where you're from and how you got to Texas.
Yeah, so born in San Antonio,
Okay.
grew up here for a time. The 80s happened, so my folks left, and we lived in New Mexico and then in Southern California, and then came back to Texas when I was, 11, 12 years old, and lived in Texas up until 20. God, when did I get married? 2011 when I got married.
Better get that one right.
I remember the exact moment. Yeah, until 2011 when I moved up to Virginia, and recently, within the last year, I've come back to Texas. So it's good to be home.
Yeah, man. Good.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a very different place.
Yeah.
God's country.
But it's a great place to be. So
Yeah.
but
I want to start off with this question. I saw the phrase "the outdoors is for everyone."
yeah.
Tell us what that means to you.
Yes. So HOC is an organization I support here in Texas. And what the outdoors for everyone really means to me is that, this is I think a lot of times people have this idea of what it means to be an outdoorsman or into conservation or a fisherman or, any of these things. And for us, and I think what speaks to me is that, like, this is a place we all love, right?
Yeah.
The outdoor space and the wild and being in nature. And so it is for everyone in the sense that, like, there's this thing that I love and I know the people that I interact with love, and this is a space that, like, we really value.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't have to look like what I think it needs to look like, right? I think there's some things around it where when we talk about what does conservation look like and what does being a good steward looks like, that I wouldn't say there's inflexibility there, but there's sort of a little bit more structure.
Yeah.
But for me, ultimately, it means that, sharing in this space intentionally, for people to come and love it as well, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And HOC Hunters of Color.
Yeah, Hunters
Cool.
of Colors
Yeah.
organization started out of Oregon. Pretty cool story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really some college friends who felt very passionate and went and started this thing, and and I got involved with them. I was invited on a hunt in Arkansas. Went and did a speck-bellied goose hunt with them, and really just shared in some incredible space for 4 days, and kind of really hadn't thought of like, hey, I'll be the person that raises my hand necessarily.
Yeah.
But when I come back to Texas, I emailed them and said, hey, you know, my family has this ranch. Love to mentor some people. And they came back and were like, well, do you think you could do, you know, would you be interested in doing more than that?
Yeah.
And I was like, sure, I have time for this. Right.
Yeah.
And so,
And
you
here we
know,
go.
really just jumped in feet first and have really been, you know, working to meet folks and to think thoughtfully about, you know, partnerships with other organizations and how we really show people. For me, what feels important is that not just, hey, you have this affinity to my group, right?
Yeah.
But that you're also introduced to any number of other organizations, whether that's BHA, TWA, Black Outside, Afro Outdoors, Latino Outdoors, like,
Yeah.
and even just like TYHP, you know, the Texas Youth Hunting Program. Like, there's this whole spectrum of opportunities for people,
Yeah.
and it feels very important for me to be an ambassador, not just for what I'm supporting, but also to introduce others to what opportunities look like in this state.
Yeah.
So
You said something interesting. You never thought you'd be the one to raise your hand. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of those stories
yeah,
of guys just not fully knowing what they're about to get into.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
and then they're kind of thrusted into.
yeah.
this
This is definitely one of those things where, you know, I've been in the outdoors, you know, throughout my life, but never thought I'd be someone who like wanted to actively mentor people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I found, so a buddy of mine is an outfitter. And so, you know, one of the things I most enjoy in being out on hunts with clients is like first time hunters. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a different dynamic and everything. But in terms of just introducing people and like showing them how a shotgun works or showing them how to like be comfortable or like coaching them on something, you know, I remember when I was, you know, if you've hunted for a while, particularly if you've bird hunted, you gain a lot of confidence in what birds you shoot and what birds you miss. Right. And I remember I was in the blind with a guy who just started hunting and you know, he shot this bird like hands down. Right.
Yeah.
And I turned to him and I was like, hey man, Joel, like phenomenal job. Man. You just shot that bird. I think it was like maybe his first or second bird. He's like, no, I didn't shoot it. And I was like, no. I can tell you 100% you did. Right.
You did, yeah.
And so there's this kind of moment where it's like, hey, your confidence can give someone else confidence and give somebody else the opportunity to not just say, oh, you know, somebody else shot the birds today, or like, no, I was a party to this hunt and I contributed. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's cool.
That's incredible. I think it's awesome that, you know, with TWA, they've got a lot of land partners that have space and they take these groups out there. I love that you're the land partner and the guy saying, I'm going to also be there and show you how to do these things.
Yeah.
You know, Texas, I'll say it's the only downside to Texas is the lack of public land. And so if you want to go hunting, if it's land hunting, it's pretty tough. There is public land, but there's just not a lot of it for the amount of people that are in the state that want to do it, and it gets crowded.
And there's also not a culture here of public land hunting, right?
Totally.
When I lived in Virginia, I had never been on a WMA in my life, right? Like I was told like, hey, why would you not hunt your ranch or a ranch you get invited to?
Yeah.
If you go hunt public land, you're going to get shot and killed, right? Like that was like 100% what I was told and like fully believed.
Pretty normal.
Which is pretty normal. Right. And that's not to say like the Orange Army isn't real. That is a really thing that happens. But part of it is that, you know, folks just need to be educated on what opportunity looks like. Right.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the things I really appreciate about the work TWA does, which is that they're actively seeking those opportunities in places that like you just would never, like my family owns a ranch in Williamson County. That's where I spend 95% of my recreation time in the state. Right.
Yeah.
And unless somebody invites me onto their ranch, I'm never going to see a part of Texas that doesn't look like the North San Gabriel River. Right.
Totally.
And that's what I think is so wonderful about when landowners do open up and share, which is like, you're just sharing like this bounty that you have. Right. And it costs you really nothing to do. But it is super impactful for people to come and see those places.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. Talk about how you guys started hunting.
Yeah, so my dad doesn't hunt. My mom doesn't hunt. My cousins hunted. A couple of my cousins hunted. And it's really my aunt when had come back from California to Texas who, basically threw me in a deer blind with her and one of my other cousins, and that's how I started hunting.
There you go.
And I would say I probably caught the bug more than everybody else.
Yeah.
But that's really how I started hunting was through someone saying I'm going to take you, right, and making it a point to take me, and I didn't. I started hunting when I was about 14. I did not shoot a deer until I was 18.
Wow.
Which is quite a long time. It wasn't for lack of effort. But I think about that and like how to educate my perspective, right?
Totally.
A lot of times, particularly new hunters feel like if they weren't successful in harvesting or shooting an animal, that they aren't a hunter yet, right? And one of my big things is to talk to people about their intentionality, right? Like you came here, you bought the gear, you put the jacket on, you woke up early, and you went and were present in this space.
Yeah.
And like that is what hunting is.
Yeah.
Like the shooting of an animal is integral to this like long-term activity, but is not integral to today's event.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
So
that's kind of poetic too. But it's so true that it's almost the more mature hunter that appreciates, like, they have less the need for blood and more the need to just be out there and exhaling and not distracted, just in the moment.
Yeah.
And you're so right. As a new hunter, you're like, or a new fisherman or a new anything,
whatever,
you're like, I gotta do this thing. And but it's the thing that drives you over all the hurdles until you're successful until you make all the mistakes and you figure out all the things you need to do better the next time.
Yeah. I mean, I was in Iowa this year, snow goose hunting, and I remember I don't know, maybe this feels like an exaggeration, but it felt like, I don't know, 40,000 or 50,000 birds just flew over us, like could not care less, right?
Yeah.
And I remember just being so frustrated. I got up out of the field and just walked out, which is really like childish of me, but I just was done that day, and then I kind of just went back to the truck, like, I ate some snacks, drank some coffee, got back together, and like went back out in the field and froze my toes off for the rest of the day, But it's definitely one of those things for me that, if we just look at like the number of deer we shoot in a season, or the number of birds we've shot, like those are it's statistics for me, and it's not. That's why I really enjoy waterfowl hunting at this point in my life, which is that I have an incredible group of friends that I go do this thing with,
right?
And it's like, being there with them in those moments, seeing their dogs retrieve, like those, like that's what really fills the well up.
Yeah.
So,
that's what it's all about. I was gonna say, it seems like in every hunter's career there comes a point where it's more enjoyable. You mentioned this earlier, more enjoyable for you to teach somebody else what it is. It came super early for me, honestly. I think mostly because my dad just had me out there killing everything that was alive.
Yeah.
Whether it was legal or not. But the benefit of that was when I was in college, like I was kind of over killing myself, but I got to take a lot of my buddies who had never been hunting before to go shoot their first deer and stuff. And it can come later for people, but it seems like everybody has that kind of switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's having kids or just getting burnt out.
For sure.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things too, that, right, so I still hunt a fair amount, right? And I say hunt a fair amount, provide context. Like I try and hunt like 30, 40 days a season.
That's awesome.
So
that's
really like,
So
it's not college days like where I hunted like 75 days. Like I hunted every day, right? But throughout the year, I really try and be in the field and present, right? And there's, for me, still a real joy in like sharing that food with my kids. Like, whether it's just spaghetti, like, I don't know, there's something to me where the kids are making that connection and being there and watching you skin out an animal and seeing like you make meat, right? There's there's a real connection there that I think teaches people that intentionality long term.
Yeah, right? For sure. It's interesting you mentioned waterfowl. I was thinking earlier that's kind of like in Texas, but in a lot of places, that's the like major public land area, all along the coast. And so you have a lot of coastal waterfowl hunters in Texas because the bay system is like everybody's ranch, and of course then you add in all the boats with 300 horsepower and stuff, and airboats and everything else. But it's a huge playland, and waterfowl is this very gear heavy sport, and you have to have all these things, and so it can be intimidating to get involved in it.
Yeah.
But it's also super fun, and like especially when you've got a big flock that comes over and it's just and they just
crazy.
you hear the wind coming off their
Oh, it's just
wings.
next level.
It's so awesome. And but on the public land side of things, I remember, I mean, out there you see lots of other people. You know,
Yeah.
you're in a set of grass, and maybe you've got some sticks and camouflage around you that you've created, or maybe you're in a blind and there's another blind, and you can see the people and you can see their barrels sort of sticking up. But the first time I was on land, like real land public hunting, I was in Colorado, elk and mule deer hunting. And I remember being in the forest, and you got all your orange and stuff, and you're like walking around, and then all of a sudden some other guys come around the corner and they're walking around and they got their orange and their guns, and you're
everybody
like,
feels surprised.
yeah, and you're like, hey man, hey, what's going on? Well,
Where are you
been
going?
walking around.
You're
Have
like,
you seen anything? Like, I don't know. Probably where you just came from. Are you going to go where I just came from? Cool. There's nothing there. Well, we should just hang out for a while, you know. But
Let's all make a 90-degree turn and walk opposite directions.
Yeah.
I'll go uphill.
yeah.
It's interesting about the waterfowling, right? I wanted to, like, I tell people, like, part of what informs my perspective is that I wanted to start duck hunting. Like, there's just a culture around duck hunting.
Totally.
That, like, I don't know. I feel like if you get into duck hunting, you get into the culture of it.
Yeah.
Right. And I really enjoy traveling. I really enjoy, like, so I got interested in waterfowling. I've told the story a couple times, but like in Maryland, on the Susquehanna River, they have the Havre de Grace Decoy Carving Museum.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've never been, you're driving to Philly from DC, make a stop. It's incredible. And I went there and just started learning about like punt guns and market hunting and the evolution of that on the Chesapeake Bay and just the culture around it. And got really just like, whoa, man, I got to be part of this culture, you know? And it was probably, man, maybe 7, 8, 10 years before I like had someone go, yeah, I'll take you hunting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the, like, I think the things about waterfowl hunting that's so interesting is like, there is the access, but it's like, do you need the boat? Like, start buying decoys. You can buy your cheapos, but like a season or two in, you're like, man, I got to upgrade to the pro grades.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
So it ends up being this really gear heavy thing, and it ends up being kind of a closed club, right? And there's value in. I'm not one of those people that says like, oh, everything should be open for everybody. Like, I see a lot of value in people having their organizations and their group of friends and like that community that they've created. But I think that has to be balanced with inviting outsiders in.
Yeah.
Right. I was talking with Matt Hughes from TWA today, and like, one of the things that I said to him is like, for like hunters are, let's say 5%, right? And let's say 40% of the country supports hunting in some capacity. We're still not at a majority of people, right? And the only way that we're going to move the needle, whether you want to talk about increased public land access or protection of species, is like for people to care.
Yeah.
And so that's really part of the one thing that feels very important to me is like, I realize this is a finite pie, right? I realize that we have to keep at some point making the slices smaller and smaller,
Right.
But I don't think we're at that point,
Yeah.
right? I think that we're at a point where we need a lot of people to care and a lot of people to have, for lack of a better term, allyship in the hunting community.
Yeah.
Right. And so we see that in other areas, but like, are you an ally to hunters? Like, do you advocate on behalf of hunters? And that's, I think, the thing that, to me, what the work that I focus on doing or want to do is that say, hey, hunting may not be for you. Like, ultimately, it may be a bit too, intimate for you, right?
Yeah.
You making your own meat may be a step too far for you, but you have an understanding and knowledge and appreciation for someone who's invested in that, and you support their ability to continue pursuing that in perpetuity.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Well, I want to get more into HOC in a second, but we do a segment on here which is just rapid fire questions from our producer Haley. So she's going to fire
our
off
producer
questions.
Haley, killer hat by the way.
Here we go. Oh, thanks.
She wrote them, by the way.
Yeah, all right.
And they're all they're for all three of us. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not the only one.
Yeah,
All right.
we're with you.
All right.
Okay.
First one is, what is your bucket list travel destination? This
I'll
is
go.
the easy one. So.
Iceland.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to.
Oh, yeah.
I want to fish so bad in Iceland. I mean,
Yeah.
it's mine.
With or without my wife is the
You
question.
can do both.
You can do both.
I would say with my wife, probably just going and I don't know, somewhere exotic. I don't know. Maybe the other side of the world. Go to New Zealand, just hang out.
That's what I was gonna say. New Zealand.
I would say in terms of hunting, going and shooting harlequin ducks.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are they? East Coast?
In Alaska. The
Okay.
last place you can shoot harlequin ducks is Alaska. So.
Interesting.
Oh
Nice.
well.
Yeah,
Wow,
you
that's
sit on like the side of a rock.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah,
That's
so,
incredible.
Where in Alaska? Just are they everywhere?
Like Bering Strait. I think
So
it's
they're-
yeah,
yeah,
these are
yeah.
pretty gnarly ducks.
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah.
Well, Alaska's on my list, and so
Yeah.
I'm going to come with you and shoot some
Okay,
harlequin
let's
and
do
then
it.
and then I'm going to grab Coleman. We're going to go catch some
Yeah.
salmon.
Yeah,
go
go to
just
Iceland. Have you been
fly
to
across
Iceland
the pond.
before?
No, never.
Yeah, we went for our honeymoon. It was incredible. We
Really?
just like did like a fast forward Golden Triangle tour of Iceland, but it was
Really?
incredible.
So
yeah.
y'all did it?
just like
everywhere?
a week.
Yeah.
Just burned around Iceland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Nice. Okay, number 2. What's your biggest irrational fear?
Irrational.
Yeah.
Yeah, dying in a crowd. I'll be 100% with you.
In a crowd?
I'm like like large crowds.
Oh.
I just can't.
I don't
Good
know how
answer. Yeah,
irrational
yeah.
that
I
is,
can.
but-
I don't think that's irrational.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go. Mine is when I'm holding someone's baby and I just think in my head like, oh my god, I'm gonna drop this baby
Don't
on
drop
its
the
head
baby.
right now.
Yeah.
Like I've never dropped a baby in my life, but for some reason, every time I hold someone else's baby, that's what.
I don't know why.
Irrational.
Wait, sorry. Do you have a destination?
Oh yeah, we
I
did.
said New Zealand too.
New Zealand.
New Zealand. Okay,
Yeah.
we're aligned.
Well,
Yep.
wait, hold up. Mine, not just heights, like specifically falling, and it's almost like I don't trust. You know, you're like standing on a high ledge,
Yeah.
and you're
course.
like, why did I just have the thought of? You know, you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Like a
It's that-
catastrophic
it's that
failure.
weird- yeah,
Like,
yeah. Why is
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
That's mine.
I can't think of a good one, but I don't like holding kids for that very reason.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to hold any other babies other than mine.
Just in case.
And I don't have
Yeah.
any more babies. So
You're right.
I'm just opted out of holding.
So you retired. You hung
holding
up
young
the
children.
gloves.
Yeah, because I'm like,
Yeah.
you've seen kids or anybody that holds a dog or a kitten and it like
Kinda-
wiggles
Oh,
and then
yeah.
it falls and hits the ground and you're like, oh my gosh! And now it's like limping and you're like, oh great, I think
Yeah.
we broke that dog's
Yeah.
leg. Like the idea that a baby might wiggle
Yeah.
and jump out, it's not awesome.
What are your thoughts on meeting babies?
Meeting babies?
Yeah.
I don't really care for
Yeah,
it.
me too. I think we have alignment there. I don't
Yeah.
understand it when people are like, "You should meet my baby." I'm like, this is a
Yeah.
very one-way
Yeah.
interaction.
Yeah.
And I- yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also,
And
I'll
by the
tell
way,
you-
I have 4 kids, so like I'm
Yeah.
no stranger to meeting new babies.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Bet for
But
it.
other than
They pretty
my
much all do
children,
the same thing. So
Well,
like
yeah,
once
I'm
you've
like-
once you've
And
met
they're pretty
one,
much
you've met them
all ugly
all.
too, and that's the other thing. I'll be the first to tell you
You're-
if it's an ugly baby.
Yeah, there are some definitely.
Ooh,
some,
you better watch out, Coleman.
Well,
Yeah.
they
You
grow
don't have
up.
kids
They're not
yet.
gonna look at
Karma's
all
gonna
like that they.
get you.
There are some funky looking babies, but you can't don't tell people they have ugly babies.
Yeah, yeah.
You just don't be effusive about how beautiful
Right,
their
right,
baby
right.
is. You know, they know.
I know.
Parents know when their baby's a little rough.
I actually know what mine is. The depths of the ocean.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Man, that's no joke.
We hauled a boat, a 21-foot ProMaster
Okay.
bay boat to Key West from Texas.
Yeah.
And we hauled it to the Keys, like Key Marathon or something,
Mhm.
Key Largo. And then we were like, we should go down to Key West and launch it at mile marker 0.
You guys can make a run.
And so we haul it all the way down to Key West and we launch it. And, there are these huge, crazy waves and stuff. And you're like, ooh, trying to get out of the harbor and these big ships passing by. And I was like, well, this is maybe not the right place for this boat. And so,
Yeah.
and so this was like a day after we had been there or something. So we come back and we just launch it like in Key Largo or Key Marathon. And, the shelf on the east side of the Keys drops off real fast. And so it might have just been me on the boat on the initial run, but let's say somebody else was in the boat. And I've got a depth finder and it's a 130 Johnson. It's like a 97 model or something, 2-stroke, just like blowing a little bit of blue out the
Yeah.
back. And it literally burned a gallon every mile you went. So it was like sucking fuel.
Yeah.
And I go out and I'm only like 10 miles offshore. I can still see everything. And then all of a sudden it goes from like 50 feet and it just drops off to 2, 3. And I'm in like 400
Nope.
feet of water. and I have flying fish that are chasing along the side of the boat and stuff. And I'm, and I sort of stop and I'm like just idling, blah, 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 blah. And I kind of look down and I know I see on the depth, it's just 400 feet. And I'm looking down, I'm in this little tiny, it's 21 feet, but now I feel tiny. And I just look over the side and it's just clear and dark and deep.
Yeah.
And I was like,
it's a no for
if
me.
my motor shuts off and I'm just floating out here or something's down there and comes up or I sink or whatever it is. And I was like, and we're going back. We're going to not pass that 5-mile reef.
It's crazy what the imagination does, though.
Well, and they say the depths of the ocean is less understood and less explored than like all the mountains and most of the planets and the moon and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I saw like a video on Instagram of like them doing a comparison, and so there was like like the length of a blue whale, and then it goes longer than Eiffel Tower, you know, still, and then it just keeps going, like doesn't even stop.
I always think it's interesting, you know, you see those like old like maritime drawings of like sea monsters, and then they're like, and then we found this giant squid last week, but don't worry, you're like, what? It's true.
You're like, no, wait, go back to that. Go back to that. Refresh.
The giant squids are true.
Yeah. You think about the different sailors that crossed the Atlantic with wind sails. And a lot of passengers, and they had no idea where they were going. They were navigators
or when they would get there, right?
And then they also only probably thought it was like 100 feet deep.
I was gonna say ignorance might have been bliss in that moment.
True.
All right, sorry.
All right, next up,
question.
If you had to choose one other outdoor sport outside of hunting and you could only do that forever and ever, what would it be?
Oh, that's an easy one for sure.
Fly fishing for me.
Oh yeah, fly fishing hands down.
Oh, good. Yeah, man. Let's go. No, you can't say
saltwater or freshwater though. Do we have to make a distinction there? How niche do we have to get?
Oh man, I'm gonna say saltwater.
Yeah,
it's more fun to me.
Yeah. I don't know. I like a ditch pickle. There's something great about just catching bass in like little water. You know?
That's true. I'll probably be like, dang it, catching fish.
I don't know. I really enjoy camping. I don't know if that's necessarily a sport, but like backpacking, hiking.
That's good.
You know, I there's just something about like sitting out in a tent underneath the stars around a campfire, and I mean that can interact with a lot of other things, but when you've got it all on your back and you're walking through the woods, it's pretty great. Yeah, pretty great feeling.
You got a trip coming up with your daughter, right?
Yeah.
Where y'all going?
We're going to Zion next week, National Park, and so we're gonna do a couple days of hiking, and then we've got a full day of canyoneering on Sunday.
Nice.
And then I was sort of working on all this last minute, trying to get all these plans dialed in. Then I think we're gonna go to Bryce Canyon on Monday, and then ride horses through Bryce Canyon to see it, and then go fly fishing on Wednesday, and then drive back.
That's what's up.
Narrows, right?
The Narrows is in Zion. I think we're not going to do Narrows. Okay. Right now, the CFM or the whatever is really high, and so it's closed.
Because of snow melt?
Yeah, because of snow melt. And it's supposed to probably open when we get there, but you're basically walking in a rocky river.
Right.
You know, and so the chance to roll an ankle and my daughter has knee issues potentially, and I'm like, let's maybe not do that. Let's do a bunch of other things. We're going canyoneering for a whole day, which is basically what the Narrows is walking through a slot canyon.
Yeah.
And so we'll have some private slot canyon stuff for 8 hours, and so we'll focus on that. But yeah, Angel's Landing, we're going to try to get the permit to go to the top of that deal, which will be pretty cool.
That's what I hear a lot about.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, man. Take your 4-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, you leave the crowds behind, man.
That's right.
It's the best.
That's all right.
All right. Last meal ever. You get to choose what it is. What is it?
Oh, man.
Classic. I'm going to go nice steak dinner. Probably at like a nice steakhouse.
Really?
Oh, man. You've been to Carve in Austin?
I have. I'm not a steakhouse guy, though.
Okay.
Like,
you may want to rethink. I'm just saying.
I go to a lot of steakhouses for work, and it sounds like such like a crappy thing to bitch about, but I just don't like all like the fussing.
Yeah, it's pomp and circumstance.
Yeah,
bring me another.
I just don't enjoy that. You know,
that's fair.
A $40 or $50 piece of meat on a white plate,
white tablecloth,
like,
and you're just.
And I always like spill on myself. Like, you know, probably a hamburger, man.
It's a good answer.
I'm a big hamburger fan.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That or cheese enchiladas.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Man.
I'm going chicken fried steak, mashed
Okay.
potatoes,
Lots of
green
gravy?
beans, just like a really good biscuit.
Yeah.
I love it.
Now I'm hungry. Let's go.
Yeah.
What's yours, Keith?
That's a good classic go-to.
Yeah.
My classic go-tos are cheese enchiladas or chicken fried steak if I'm on the road, like at a diner.
Yeah.
Man, almost anything that my wife makes is like something I would eat. She makes these awesome biscuits
She tell you to say
for
that?
breakfast.
I know. I was gonna say.
She makes this hash that's really good. It's like sweet potatoes and meat and onions and stuff.
Classic.
I don't know. Pretty much anything she cooks, I would rather eat
Yeah.
her food than a
That's
restaurant
awesome.
any day.
Picked a good one, though.
I know. Such a safe
Yeah.
answer. Okay, last one. It's my personal favorite. Who are you choosing?
It would have to have mac and cheese though.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
keep going.
All right.
You have baked mac and cheese?
Yeah, also a
guy?
whole lot of gluten for
Man,
me.
it could be anything.
Anything, as long as it's mac and cheese.
I'm typically stovetop mac and
Yeah,
cheese,
yeah.
but baked with a little crumble on it.
Whatever
That's good,
meal's
too.
got a ton of dairy and a
And
ton of gluten for
yeah,
me.
since you're never
Because
allowed
it's
to
going to be the
have
last meal.
it. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, who are you choosing to represent Earth in an alien invasion?
Great
Our
question.
representative. Who's it gonna be?
Wow.
Great question.
Oh man,
Man, Joe Rogan is a great answer.
Mhm.
Cam Haynes is a great answer. I feel like he just
Yeah.
got the face, got the look. Also, The Rock.
I'm going
I'm
Jason.
just spitting off a bunch right now.
I'm going Jason Bateman.
Jason
Oh,
Bateman.
He's my
Forget that.
favorite.
when you say represent, is it like this is the epitome of the human race, or is this the person that's
It's like-
going to go speak for us?
Like,
Well, that's what-
yes,
yeah.
like they're
How
setting up a
hostile
meeting.
are they?
Our leader versus their leader.
Good
Who's our
question.
leader?
That's something to think about.
Oh gosh,
Well, because they come and they were like scrambling, like, oh, who needs to talk to him?
Do they have
Joe
to be
Biden.
alive?
Good-
I don't
Y'all-
know.
Let's say no.
Y'all, I'm
Let's
going to
say
give you
no.
the answer. All y'all's answers are wrong. It's Willie Nelson.
I knew
Yeah,
you were gonna
that's
say
a-
that. The
Yeah.
second I
So
read
no,
this,
That's a good one.
Yep.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a, I mean,
he just give him a little doobie
I come in
and
peace.
make a
Yeah,
deal.
that's a good. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I always just assume aliens are hostile. You know,
Yeah.
I'm like ready for some Independence Day
Yeah.
action.
Yeah. That's why Will
We'll have
Smith.
Joseph Robinette Biden up there leading
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
jokes aside, yeah, that would not be my pick. Yeah, I don't know. I think
Is Trump like legitimately an okay answer?
no, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think
he
so.
might be-
We're like we really need like some plain Jane sort of like
yeah.
tough talking. I think definitely a Texan,
Yeah.
definitely on the vibe.
For sure.
Yeah.
Like Tommy Lee
Oh,
Jones.
you know
or
what?
something.
I think I think George
He does
W.
have
Bush is
experience.
probably
Yeah.
like not, but like present day George W. Bush, like
Yeah.
painting George W. Bush
Yeah.
would probably
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
the dude I send.
Yeah.
You know,
Painting
be like
the-
W, like
Yeah.
you know, you've got a softer side now.
Yeah.
Like I think so. I
Yeah.
think that guy's on the vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He dealt with 9/11.
I think for somebody to have approachability and wisdom and make hard decisions
Yeah.
and have grace, that he definitely epitomizes that.
Yeah. Especially with like aliens, right?
For sure with
Yeah,
aliens.
for sure.
All right.
He'd be
that's
like,
all I got.
y'all come out to the ranch.
Just come out to the ranch.
We're gonna get this figured out.
Yeah.
They're like, no, we've seen the
Yeah,
ranch.
they're like
We
at
know what
like
you're up to.
reunion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if we sped around that or, but it was.
This is great.
Yeah, thank you, Haley.
Of course.
Great questions.
Producer out.
Great
Yeah.
producing.
Going back into Hunters of Color, kind of lay out their mission again.
Yeah, their mission is to really expand the outdoor space in
Okay.
terms of who's participating, and we do that for really thinking through our programming in terms of what we're presenting to people and the opportunities that we're creating, and ultimately looking to have people who don't just come hunt once, but who end up buying hunting licenses and really are contributing to the revenue for conservation, right?
Okay.
Like when we get down to it, that's the goal of Hunters of Color, is to recruit new hunters and conservationists into this effort. And by really providing opportunities, whether they're consumptive or non-consumptive opportunities, for people to come and learn about the land, to learn about nature, to learn about these ecosystems, water, and really be invested in that,
Yeah.
right? And so that looks like oftentimes people who maybe look like you being there, and oftentimes people who don't look like you being there, to really challenge what you think this looks like. Like, what does like, I always think of, like, this is like the probably like antithetical to the idea of being outdoors, like floating the river, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you go and float the river and you see other people like you on the river, like, you may feel like an affinity towards those people doing the similar activity. And so really the goal of HOC is to provide that space for people to come in, be comfortable, and learn, and then also be an advocate for that same activity in the future
going forward. Cool.
Yeah.
What is the importance of food sovereignty to you guys?
So I think that, like, just in general, we're seeing this sort of awareness in the U.S. and really, internationally, people looking to be self-sufficient in some capacity, right?
Okay.
And I think that for HOC particularly, and I'm not as well versed in this because that's not my community, but particularly in the indigenous space, it's the way of life in those communities, right? And so HOC's goal, in part, particularly with the work that we do with indigenous communities, is to help provide that connection, right? I think there's a lot of assumptions that people make about, what being native or what being an Indian means, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe we assume that people, just because you're, a member of a nation, that you know how to hunt, right? And so that isn't always the case, and oftentimes isn't the case. And so having people come in and partner with those communities and help teach them, like, there's a guy, his name's Josh, he runs Modoc Bows, and he's native, and one of his big things is going and teaching bow making throughout, indigenous communities. And, like, Josh and I were speaking a while back, he's like, sometimes there's even, like, concerns about him coming in because of his understanding and methodologies, and bow making is for his tribe, right? And teaching those skills, like, well, we don't build bows like that, right? And so learning how to sort of address those concerns and respect those traditions and those values, but also empower people to, like, get started in their learning curve, right?
Yeah.
And so food sovereignty is very much in that same ilk, in which we're like, we want to teach people, like, hey, this is how you go procure your own proteins, or this is how you forage for mushrooms, or this is sort of how you can exist in this space and have food, right?
Yeah.
So really giving people confidence to learn, and also a platform to do that learning in safely.
That's cool. You're almost reteaching society this, right?
I mean, I think for me, right, we are sort of reteaching people, like reconnecting people.
Right.
I think about, this is kind of an aside, but, like, in my family's ranch, we still have, like, the old butter churn, right?
Yeah.
Like, no one's, like, if you go to ranches all over, there's farms all over, there's gonna be butter churns everywhere. Like, I've never churned butter, right? Like, right? But here's this tool, and maybe if I got interested enough, I'd go clean it up and use it, right? Now here I'd have that skill again, right? And that's a lot of, for me, what this is about, which is teaching people, like, hey, these are skills that you should learn, and that they will have value in your life beyond what we're just doing here today.
Yeah. So interesting to me, just like the loss of technology and the loss of we just forget over time how to do things.
Yeah,
almost,
we do. We're one EMP away from being analog again.
Right.
Like, that's the reality of this. I mean,
Very
not really.
true.
We have all these, like, RFI protected buildings and stuff, but,
Right.
like, the reality is, like, we're in this, like, super technological, like, the future is now, right? Like, minus flying cars.
Yeah.
Right.
We live in, like, this future society where we're, like, implanting, like, synthetic valves into people and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Right.
But I do think that there's just this huge value in being connected.
Yeah.
Right. And whether that's connected to, like, the water you're drinking, which I think everyone, like, foundationally, you are connected to the water you drink.
Yeah.
Or whether it's the food you consume, all of it, for me, has much greater value when I'm connected to it.
Yeah. That's awesome. What the diversity of hunting now? How do you see it? Where do you see it going?
I mean, this is a very different space than when I started hunting.
Yeah,
right. I'm
sure.
like super encouraged just by, particularly, folks in sort of the generation that I've come up with, just their interest in it.
Yeah.
Right. It used to be kind of like this, like, let's go have a boys' weekend at the ranch.
Yeah.
And now it's like, let's go invite new people, and let's go have this experience, and let's go this place and see these things and embrace this culture. And so, like, for me, I think it sort of mirrors our larger societal shifts, in which we've seen people just, become part of communities very naturally. So I just see more of the same, right? Like, I think that the greatest challenge is going to be taking folks who are from an urban environment and presenting them, particularly around firearms, right? There's a lot of stuff in our culture right now around firearms. There's a lot of division over it. And certainly not to say that it's not an important issue. I think it's a critically important issue for us. But, the guns that I'm hunting with, like, I don't think should be really a division point for us, right? And I think just presenting that to people in a way that feels accessible and non-threatening, right, is really important.
Yeah. And getting people out and going on these hunts with you and seeing it for the first time, seems like that always helps people like understand.
Just
these aren't a bunch of
demystify it,
madmen.
right? Yeah, I just want to demystify this for people. What does it mean to use a gun as a tool, right? Because ultimately, a gun is a tool. Like, I grew up around guns, and they never seemed like an issue to me. But I also want to recognize that people grew up with guns, and they were an issue for them.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not fair to just be like, oh, it's not a problem, right? Because it is a problem for some people.
Yeah.
But really sort of saying like, hey, this is the way in which I'm, and it's not to necessarily validate myself or validate this community to others, but to just say, hey, your conception, your preconceptions are just wrong. Like this is very different than what you believe,
right?
Or what you've been led to believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And the culture shift that you're talking about does exist in all outdoor sports.
I mean, I think it's a lot of outdoor sports. I'm primarily focused in the hunting space, right? And I fly fish a lot. But, I just also think there's more awareness. Like, that's one of the things I love about social media is, like, you can find out about some dude in the middle of Missouri right now.
Right.
There's a younger guy, I think in Louisiana, who's like, blowing up on social media, and he's just all about hunting and fishing. And here he is. Like, do you think that an African-American kid in Louisiana would be into that? Like, if you'd asked me 15 years ago, I'd say maybe, probably not. Yeah. And then today, like, you find out, like, no, there's this whole community around it. Right.
Otherwise nobody would have ever heard about this.
You just exist in ignorance, right?
Right, exactly.
And I think that's the major value of social media, which is like, it gives you information in somewhat real time.
Yeah.
And like, that's not to say some of it's not highly curated. Like a lot of it is highly curated, but the fact of the matter is, like, these things still exist. No one's creating a fictitious person on social media.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Maybe they're creating a fictitious life, but there's a real person there at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Behind the screen is a real person. Yeah. I think we have one more segment from our producer.
Okay. And she's back.
Yeah. This is
Yeah. Okay. So we like to do an on this date in history. June 23rd, Nick Walinda becomes the first man to successfully walk across the Grand Canyon on a tightrope. My hands are sweating even thinking about that.
Yeah, it's a hard pass.
Yeah. No thanks. Kansas, you want to do that in a...
Nope. I sure don't.
It's not rocks.
It's got to be like a section that's kind of
surely.
Shorter, right?
I mean, I don't think he's going to the mouth of the canyon and
I
think my man's going over
north to south.
He's going north rim to south rim.
Yeah, he's propping up a what's the tents that you camp in when you're climbing big walls? What do they call it? Like porta-hangs? Porta-hang or something.
Yeah,
porta-ledge. Up one of that porta-ledge on
I'm out.
Slack line. Yeah, no thanks. Heights, remember?
Yeah. I was thinking about like the engineering that goes behind that, right?
Right. Yeah, because somehow you
can make assumptions about the rock condition, right? It's like the construction in me. Like, you can make assumptions about like the compaction rate and how much this will actually hold, and you better hope it actually does, right?
It's granite, and we drilled the hole, so there should be no fracturing.
Should be no fracturing.
And we tense this thing up enough so that it's so taut that a guy can walk across it without it like just sagging and drooping. Probably that's not going to pull the rock apart.
Let's do more than one anchor. Have you done the North Rim Road? There's like a Forest Service road you can take.
Okay.
And that leads you like to this campsite that's like right on the North Rim.
Really?
Yeah, it's super.
He was pretty recently there.
I mean, we left from the North Rim, and there's a whole campsite, and there's a lodge
not the lodge,
on the North Rim.
Not the lodge. Like it's about a 3-hour drive when you leave the lodge to go through this like whole system of Forest Service roads, and like there's like, I'll drop you a pin and say,
oh yeah,
yeah.
Huh.
My wife and I drove there. I was like, it's only 7 miles. How long will that take?
Oh yeah, I've done that.
Yeah.
3 hours?
3 hours each way.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
No
we were
way.
very late getting to where we were
Yeah,
supposed
no
to.
way. You can
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah,
I did
it's
that
incredible though.
Really,
Yeah.
I did that in Big Bend Ranch State Park.
Yeah.
Same kind of deal. I was like, oh, it's just like right there, you know. and
Yeah.
2.5 hours later.
Yeah, fully locked and 4 low.
Yeah, nice.
It takes a little while. Yeah.
That sounds awesome. I'm gonna need that bin.
Yeah.
We're taking the big rig and the camper though. Is it pretty tight?
I probably wouldn't.
Yeah, it's probably not.
But I don't know. It's a fairly well known trail, but
Yeah,
it's
interesting.
you might camp there. You know.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
I'm a big fan. Like shout out to Forest Service camping. Like,
Hey, yeah.
if you don't know, go look that up. You can camp in the forest for
Yeah.
like your permit, right?
Yeah.
It's like $85.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And no reservations, no toilets, and no Wi-Fi.
There you go.
pretty good.
But it sounds ideal.
it's good clean living.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty good segue into this, but what is some advice that you have for somebody? We talked about how it is a pretty gear heavy
Yeah.
world, the waterfowl sport of that.
Yeah.
What's some practical advice for somebody trying to get into it?
The gear you have works.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm a big fan of like Patagonia, right?
Yeah.
And the work that they do, but just a big fan of their gear. You know, not everybody has, you know, $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 to get rigged up in the latest, greatest, you know, Sitka or, you know,
Right.
Duck Camp or whatever your brand is. Like, it's all phenomenal gear. Go buy it, support the companies.
Yeah.
But the gear you have works, right? Like, you know, the jacket you have will get you out fishing. You know, the shoes you wear to hike and to go backpacking will get you into the backcountry. That's really my advice to people. And don't be afraid to borrow gear. You
Yeah.
know, don't be afraid to ask. I mean, I know a lot of times, particularly with firearms, like I'm not super not going to just hand out guns to anybody.
Yeah.
But certainly, you know, if I'm going on a hunt with somebody, I'm more than happy to bring, you know, an extra gun or two with me and walk them through it. And, you know, particularly like with close friends and family members, I've lent out guns for a season just to get people going. But, you know, don't be afraid to ask. I think that's the biggest thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in as a young person, and then even into married children life, there were a lot of things that I did, and I was like, well, I have to have this before I can go do this thing. And then I would do this one thing, and I would be like, I don't really like that thing so much, and or I'd realize, well, I didn't really need that to go do this thing. And so I think your message of just get out there and go do it, and then like as you create a stronger affinity for it and you want better gear that's going to allow you to perform better, then start upgrading. But don't be put off by like, I need $5,000 worth of gear and binos and stuff to go do this.
I was thinking, that kind of reminds me, right? I was putting together a new saltwater fly rod, and I was like super interested in this one Waterworks Lamson reel. I'm a huge fan of their stuff. And I called him up and I'm like, hey man, is this reel like good for the saltwater? You know, and he was like, man, every reel's good for the saltwater. Yeah. Like literally, like if it holds line and it does what you need to do, just rinse it out. Like, are you a professional guide? I was like, no, I'm not a professional guide. He's like, then you're not going to use it enough for it to matter. Just go fish. You know, and I just really appreciated that perspective of like, you know, maybe you need to do a little bit more maintenance to your gear, but you've got it and go use it.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I like that a lot.
I think the biggest thing with saltwater reels is the strength of the drag.
Yeah.
Because the fish is a harder fighting fish, and so traditionally or historically, a river reel you couldn't upgrade it because it would
blow
burn
out your drag for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But, you know, if you're chasing, you know, schoolie sized stripers or,
that's true.
You know, comparatively sized fish, right? Like maybe we're not going to go chase tarpon with it, right? But like, you know, going after redfish or whatever specs, like you're good to go. Just go do it. You know, if you burn up a reel, like now you've got a great excuse to go upgrade. So
that's awesome.
The curiosity in people is always going to make you like still want to go after that big fish, even if it's a tide. I mean, you're like, I'm still throwing a fly at it. I don't care how
you
small
might take, you know?
Yeah.
So
fun.
Man, I was bait casting. Pretty sure I was fishing touts in Seadrift a long time ago in the winter, and I'd caught a couple redfish and released them. And I remember like looking at it and be like, all right, when I get back to the boat, I need to I need to cut this and tie it again. It's had enough work on it that that line might fray, you know. And I'm casting and I see this tail, you know, and I land into this red, and I just kept loosening my drag because all I could think was, I can't believe I'm in this monster red.
Yeah.
And I just looked at my line like, when I get back to the boat, I need to retie this because it's getting frayed out. And so I worked that fish for like 30 minutes or something, and landed it and couldn't believe it.
The line,
held this fish up. It's like 31-inch red, just huge red.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
but the entire time I was thinking, I'm gonna lose this fish because of that.
And
I
knew better.
and I knew better.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, dude, I just want to end with one question. It's a question we ask everybody.
Yeah.
In one sentence, if you can, what does the outdoors mean to you?
Man, that's a great question. I think it to me it ultimately means possibility, right? Like every time you walk out your door and you go and enter in these spaces, like you just never know what's going to happen, right? And you may have this moment that's just transformative. Yeah. And sometimes you go and you get really cold and it sucks, and you go drink coffee that's cold, you know. But sometimes you go and you see stuff that literally just sticks with you for the rest of your life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. We'll do plug your stuff. Where can people learn about you?
Yeah, so HOC, Instagram, website, huntersofcolor.org. My Instagram is Baba Goes Outside. That's probably the best way to hit me up. Send me an email, Basheer@huntersofcolor.org. We've got some great hunts lined up with some great partners this season. We're going to be doing some whitetail hunting. We're going to plan on doing some duck hunting, some deer hunting.
Nice.
Basically cool. My goal is really to showcase the state that I love, right?
Amen.
Shout out to East Texas and West Texas, places that don't get enough love, in my opinion. So that's a big part of what we're hoping to do, is to show people that, it's not just Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, Austin, right? There's this whole great big state that is more diverse than you realize.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, absolutely. You got any trips coming up personally?
I'm going to Montana. I'm going to Montana here in about, 10 days when I get back from Brazil. My mother-in-law lives up in Montana, so we're going to go do a little family trip. A good buddy of mine's coming from Maryland. We're going to go fish the Snake in the Henry's Fork for about 5 days. Incredible. So it'll be a good trip. And man, just buzzing around, and then we'll be at hunting season before we know. We'll be back to the grind, this grind that we love, right? So.
Well, thanks again for coming on, man. Really,
thanks for having me. I really enjoy what you guys are about. So.
Thank you. Appreciate it.